How are you doing, John?
I'm doing well, doing really well.
What's
Had
new
a,
with you?
just had a meeting with Dr. McAdams this morning.
Oh, great.
Lots of every time I get together with that guy, we brainstorm and we come up with all kinds of stuff we can get into. So there's some exciting ideas that he had that he asked that I not share yet, but so some really interesting ideas for some applications for VR that I think would be pretty interesting. So excited about that and in our ongoing collaboration. And he has another study that is all the study's been done, the paper's been written, but they're just doing a final edit on it. So
We're anxious to
uh,
hear about your the conference you went to
Yeah.
and
Yeah. So I went to FETC, Future of Education Technology, which is it's more of a K through 12. And originally I thought, did I make a mistake in doing this? It's in Orlando, so that had a little bit to do with that. I do kind of like Florida. Um, but but I thought, did I make a mistake? Maybe I shouldn't have. Maybe I should have looked for a different one. Maybe I should have done, something out of the VRARA or something like that. And I didn't make a mistake. I didn't. It was a very good conference. I got to speak to a lot of vendors, and it was nice to be not the only, but one of the only higher eds in the room. And it was also cool to see what K through 12 is looking at in regards to VR. Now, of course, the shiny penny throughout the entire thing was AI.
mm,
All right, we all know that it's going to happen. It's happening in higher ed. It's happening in K through 12. Um, it uh, all of the lines outside of the, how do I prevent my students from cheating in AI? The lines for those were like out the door, okay, to get into those. And I understand it. I do. I understand um, why cheating and stuff like that is such a big deal. Obviously, I mean, I think there's a way around that. Sort of going back to old fashioned methods, but okay, got it right. Um, but when I started to talk to some of the VR vendors, and of course there's the chatter about how are we adding AI into VR, and then there's the security concerns, and then there's the sort of, almost I don't want to say moral concerns. It's not really that. I guess it's more ethical concerns as to how, AI is going to operate, those kind of things. But talking to one of the vendors, um, he actually said to me, he said, "Will you do me a favor?" I was like, "Yeah, what's up?" He goes, "Will you go and look at some of these AI things that are here, and will you tell me like what your honest opinion is on those?" And he didn't say anything other than that. Just tell me your honest opinion. So I went and started looking at some of them. And I thought, I wonder why he's wanting me to do this. Um, because a lot of what people are building with AI and even sort of selling with AI, it's almost like there's like script written over top of just ChatGPT.
yes, that's it. Exactly. The
Yeah,
vast majority of AI innovation is just a wrapper around ChatGPT.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's here's our website that really just uses ChatGPT to power it.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I thought about building one just because why not, right? Like we could
Yeah,
build like a nursing AI,
mhm,
platform and just have like
right.
different prompts for this, keep track of this over here, just the dashboard, not for nursing, but I mean for nursing educators.
Yeah.
You could just build that in a
Mhm.
long weekend at this point. Like it wouldn't be that hard to do.
It really and that was it. I just looked up those and I was like, but I can do that with ChatGPT.
Exactly. Yeah.
mm.
Yep.
I mean, I did ask ChatGPT what some safe bets were for the AFC and NFC championships, just in case you
What did it say? Did it tell you?
Is that okay to say on the pulse? Is that all right?
Sure, we're all
Okay,
for it.
cool.
Whatever.
Yeah, so okay, well, this will mess things up, but um so here's what we've got for safe bets. Let me get into ChatGPT. All right, so Saquon Barkley on the over. He 23.5 is the current over for his rushing. Or yeah, well, Saquon Barkley on the over. That's what it said to do. Jaden Daniels on the over for passing touchdowns. I agree with that one. I don't think the Eagles have the defense for that. Um, Josh Allen on the over for passing yards. I'll be honest, I'm a little surprised about that one, but okay. And then Xavier Worthy on the over for receiving yards. I
Hmm.
I, I agree with that one too. Um, it also said taking the Commanders by the spread, right? The Commanders are 6 point underdog, and taking them on the spread, it says is a good idea. And then Bills on the money line. So anyway, sorry.
Wow. So, but it was, I guess, it was willing to answer the question and give
Yeah,
you guidance on something like that. That's really interesting because I know they used to keep a pretty short leash on that, where it wouldn't
yeah,
get into that kind of thing, like current events and like
yeah,
speculation and things like that.
yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, it's growing fast. AI continues to evolve, and yeah, layers over the top of the core chat GPT layer. I mean, I
It
can
really
see where there's
was.
a value add because a lot of, like, again, back to nursing education, if we were to try to build, if a nursing educator was trying to just use plain vanilla chat GPT, like there's a certain level of sophistication in terms of prompt engineering that you have to understand in order to get valuable information out of it. So these
Right.
layers are nice insofar as they sort of batch and bundle those prompts in interesting ways that can then sort of accelerate your use of the platform,
Yeah.
to be able to do things, and there's also going to be a common set of things that every nurse educator is likely going to need or want in terms of like, and developing a case or something like that, like a
Yes.
case builder where you could build a case with just straight up chat GPT, but it would be even better if there was a platform around it or wrapper around it that gave you prompts for like, what's your patient's name, date of birth, and it just sort of seeds it so then you're getting right to the point quicker, things like that. So I get the value add with that, but it's surprising to me how much sort of or AI innovation is happening in the name of building a wrapper around the core platform. I think that's really interesting.
It really is. And so I went back to that vendor and I was like, well, here's what I'm thinking, but I could be wrong. I'm not a tech guy. I'm a medic. But here's what I'm seeing. I got to stop calling myself not a tech guy. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
know.
you're like the
I
techest
think you
guy,
got
one of
your,
the
I think
techiest
you
guys I
got your
know.
membership card at this point, Bill.
I think I have it. I finally joined. Was the bald head necessary? Yeah.
It's requisite, yeah, right at this point.
Yeah.
So I go back over and I was like, it seems like it's kind of just layered over Chat GPT, and he's like, okay, we need to talk more, and he's like, let's talk, and of course the other thing that I thought was really interesting was sort of the I know I've seen it before multiple times, but to see how far ahead anyone who's using VR already is. I can't stress that enough because I know there are people out there that are frustrated and thinking, I am terrible at this. No, you're not. Okay. And I'm not harping on people who came in. There were people who came in that are literally right now building labs and they said, I know nothing about VR. Like I know VR stands for virtual reality. And I have been tasked by my school district to build in virtual reality and build in other 21st century solutions for learning because people are talking about it, because there's that buzz out there to start to get 21st century learning more into the classroom. There were things that I looked at there that I was like, I really wish that my kids were using this in school right now. There was some absolutely great stuff. Some of it was extremely expensive. Some of it was cheap in the sense that it wasn't bad. It was like good cheap. There was one that was really cool where they were using straws Like they gave you in the box of stuff, they gave you straws, they gave you connectors, and they gave you a general plan of what to build. And then the kids would build like they had a crane that was built with all straws. And I was like, with plastic straws. And I'm like, whoa, that's pretty cool. Like, interesting, you know? So there was really cool stuff that I thought was still good hands-on tactile learning that wasn't VR and was stuff that actually kind of made me think more like, huh. There was one class I went to where the person leading the class had a newspaper with a bunch of QR codes and a couple of things, a couple of articles about like what she was doing and that kind of stuff, and then QR codes to go experience it. And I'm like, that's good.
That's pretty cool.
Boy, that's really good. Like, yeah, I know people kind of pass by newspapers sometimes, but like combining the newspaper and the like all the QR codes and all of that to get you to go to those and then it like it went to videos, it went to all these different things that she was doing, and I thought, man, that's really cool. Now I got to do that, you know. So so it was
The
fun.
Bill Ballo Gazette. I love it.
That's
I'm
it,
here
man.
for it. I'm
That's
here
it.
for it.
It's gonna be famous around Madison College, like
There you go.
here's what we're doing, because we just expanded to chemistry. So our chemistry department is now on board with some of the other stuff that we utilize, and then we're talking now even more. So we've expanded to our regionals already. That's in progress at the moment. But then we're even considering maybe some further expansion even on our campus. I mean, we'll see. That's just in the talking phases, but like the amount of growth that we've had is it's been impressive, at least to the higher ups, and they seem to like it. So um, yeah. So now we're in that like how do we keep it going phase, and actually going to this FETC conference was really good. It was really
That's
good.
awesome.
It also brought me out of the healthcare realm,
Hmm. Hmm.
because I am so focused, like I'm IMSH or I'm, go to this healthcare, go to this healthcare one. And going to something that wasn't healthcare was really nice, actually.
Mm.
So in general, AI was the flavor of the day, but I guess
Oh
second
yeah.
up, what was second up? Like what was the next other main topic?
Everywhere you go, hands-on learning, including VR.
Hands-on with VR.
VR, VR was a big, big, big topic. And I mean, and then they're using VR in the sense of like Merge Cube, right? Which is more augmented reality, right? So they're using like Merge Cube and stuff like that. I mean, there were companies that were like aligned with Merge Cube to use Merge Cube in their classes, and which I thought was kind of neat. I mean, I got a free Merge Cube, so I'm like, here, I gave it to my daughter. I said, figure out what you can do with this thing. Um, and she's sort of playing around with that now. But hands-on learning, tactile learning, active learning, that is like, AI was a big shiny penny, but everybody was talking about active and hands-on learning. And that's where virtual reality shines. So,
Absolutely. Yep, hands-on,
you
100%.
know, because you
What were
can't,
you?
as an instructor, you may not be able to afford this mannequin and that mannequin and this thing and
Yeah.
that thing and all the, but if you can get it into a platform in virtual reality, yeah.
Yeah,
What would you say? Did you hear anything with regards to, especially in the K-12 area, where what if a student can't put on a VR headset, and how are they handling that?
You know, um, I don't know that there's enough discussion around that, John. Um, and and for me, that's a little problematic because I actually had a student that came in that was in yesterday. So we did our Spanish class. Student that was in yesterday and said, I get really nauseous when I put these things on. And I was like, okay, what did you try in the past? That kind of stuff. Well, I tried to play this game and all of that. And I'm like, okay, so what you're doing right now, there's not going to be a lot of movement. Let's give it a go and see how we do. And he was okay, but he needed a chair. Okay, no problem. I can accommodate chair, no problem. But the other accommodation is if that student is unable to do this, I'm always looking for the 2D option.
Hmm.
And actually, I think that was kind of drummed into me by Acadicus's 2D option. But I'm always looking for the 2D option. Now, the program that we're using for Spanish, it does have a 2D option, so we're golden, right? And so that's sort of the thing for me. There's not enough discussion about that. I
Yeah.
think I think I saw maybe one class on that, and it was sort of under the umbrella of inclusivity,
Hmm.
which is great in its own, in its own right. Talking about inclusivity is it's a need, but then like you're simply putting it under the umbrella of inclusivity, and I actually think it's a little bigger than that.
Hmm.
I think it's a little bigger than that. I think saying, hey, there is going to be a percentage of people that this is going to affect negatively, and you don't want that.
No, no, it's
So
got to be
how
another option.
how do we do that? Yeah, we have to have
And
a 2D option.
yeah, and that's the hard part about the specifically like the Meta Quest 3S was a very big seller this holiday season. They, apparently they broke records in terms of it was the #1 downloaded app on the App Store, like
Yeah.
to integrate with to get your Quest set up. So there's a lot of these headsets and it's standalone, but with a standalone headset, it's very difficult to offer that 2D equivalent. And I think that's what I'm
Almost
really curious
impossible.
about. And it seems like in a K-12 setting it's going to be almost impossible to encourage them to roll out full-blown PC VR labs, right, with
Right.
laptops and the whole 9 yards. It seems like the mobile headsets are going to be the way they're going to do it. But
Yeah.
those applications, by and large, almost never have a 2D option. So
Yeah.
that's where I just don't know how do we get that to move forward without that. Like I just think it's gonna be a question of legality. Like you can't just
Yeah.
say like, sorry, you just have to sit in the corner and wait while the rest of the students do this really fun activity that's blowing their minds because you have a sight impairment. Like that's just totally not fair. That's not legal, at this point.
So
And
when we opened the lab, I reached out to our disability services coordinators because of this specific issue. Because I'm like, what do I do with students who can't? So, and she was like, I don't know. No one's ever asked this question before. And so she actually reached out to all the disability services coordinators within the WTCS, so all 16 colleges, and said, hey, what do you guys think about that? And they're like, not even on our radar.
yeah,
Couldn't tell
yeah,
you, don't have an answer.
yeah,
Um, and so the answer I got back was, well, motion sickness does not count as a disability. So therefore, they either do it or they just miss out and they're not, or they can do the 2D on the screen. Um, and then because my question was, well, what if a student gets motion sickness? Like I have a family member that can't even watch like her son play a first person shooter game on like PlayStation on the
I
TV screen
can't.
and makes her motion sick.
Me
yeah,
too. I'm the same way.
yeah,
And so I'm like, well, what if you have a student who can't do that? And they're like, well, then you would just have to give them an alternate assignment.
yep,
And so that is what it is. Like you would be like, okay, here's a paper case study. Go sit in the corner and do your case study while everybody else does this.
yeah,
Yeah, we gotta
yeah. And
start we gotta start figuring that out.
I've been driven by, do I have an option, right? Like when I'm looking at vendors, when I'm talking to any vendors, my baseline is, what is my other option? Because there was a lawsuit out in California about adding in, you have to have an alternative, and that alternative has to be not exactly, oops, sorry everyone, not exactly similar, but it has to be of some level, some similar level of impact. Because like you said, Mitch, right? You can't just be like, oh well, here, do this case study, and and everybody else over there's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, and you're like, well, and so some of my baseline when I look at vendors, is what option do I have? And I leverage my PCs a lot for that, and that's where sometimes I get a little angry when people are like, PC VR, what do you do in PC VR? I'm like, well, this is what we do. And Why do you use PCs? Because first of all, the fidelity, and second of all, I have the option of my students being able to participate and not have to be in the headset if that's what it comes down to. Now, right
And
now,
being
we
able to see
only
what
have,
they're doing.
right,
And to be able to see what they're
exactly,
doing. Yep.
and interact with the other students. And and okay, maybe they don't have the exact same experience, but they certainly have something that is aligned with what you are currently doing with the other students that are able to put the headset on. Now, the other thing was, and people didn't, I don't know if they just didn't know or they didn't think about it. The 3S is great in the sense that it's a price, the price point on it is amazing and it's saving money and those kind of things. But when I went further into what's the difference between the 3S and the 3, the lens that's in it, the lenses are different. The Fresnel lens, which is that lens where if you put on a 2 or you put on like a Reverb G2, there's a crosshair of where you've got your perfect view. So if your headset's up a little bit, you get more blurriness. If your headset's down a little bit, you get more blurriness. Side to side, you get more blurriness. That Fresnel lens really has a point, and it's bigger than just a single point, but it really has a point where that's your perfect spot. Whereas in the 3, you have a pancake lens, and boy, is there a difference between those two. And if you don't think there's a difference between those two, maybe your vision's better than mine. But when I put on the 3 over the 3S, I can move that headset and be a little bit out of that center, and I can see way better. So that's another thing that I don't know if people knew or I mean us we all knew that, but like that Fresnel lens versus the pancake lens, there is a definite difference. And I think it'll make a difference too in whether or not a student feels, oh, I can't wear it or I'm having motion sickness or something like that. John, I'd actually be interested for you to try it and see if it's a difference for you.
Yeah, I've never tried a 3S. Yeah, but I'm curious to know
Yeah.
because I know exactly what you're talking about, and I remember the past headsets. That was we always had to deal with that, and you'd always have to. Everybody would always put the headset on and say, "Well, it's really blurry," and then you'd have to say, "Well, move it up and down until you find the sweet spot." Oh, that's way better. Every single time. Like you get really used to that.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yep. It even happened with the reverbs, with the G2s.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It would
Yep.
happen where, the student would go, I can't read that medication. It's really blurry. And I go, adjust your headset up and down a little bit. But now that I've been using the 3s with my students more often, I don't get that as much.
Mhm.
So yeah, the 3s definitely make a
Yeah.
big difference. And the reverbs were great. We originally went with them because they were a little bit more agnostic and all that kind of stuff. But now that the Meta headsets are more agnostic than they were previously, the 3s are great. And then I also have 12 more standalone headsets for anything else I need to do. So
Yep. Yep.
I do
Well, that's
miss the
great.
Quest Pro because the Pro had that open bottom
Yeah.
and where, yeah, you maybe lose some of the immersiveness to a degree, but I liked that open bottom, especially for those people who did get a little motion sick or did have some issues. But and I will say though, with Acadicus, that the snap feature with teleporting versus having people walk around and using the snap for turning really does, because I would have students be like, oh, I get sick every time, I get sick every time. And I'm like, just try it. Just try it. If you feel any different than you feel right now, you let me know and we will take it off immediately. And I had very few students who ever get sick because, or even feel like they may feel a little, they tell me they feel like they just got off a boat. Like that's the only thing they'll tell me.
Yeah.
And I think it's that snap feature really makes a huge difference in the ability to use it, even for those who may have some issues.
We got so much pushback from that from the beginning. When we tried to integrate that, I insisted on it over and over again that lerping, because they call it that lerping motion,
it's terrible.
it makes me so motion sick and I can't do it. And everybody's like, oh, it's going to break the immersion. You can't just ratchet people. Like ratcheting people will make it worse. It'll make them feel jarring, and nope. Absolutely not. That ratcheting is what saves it from motion sick. Because that vestibular mismatch, if your eyes start rotating slowly like that, but your inner ear doesn't detect that motion, that mismatch is going to make you motion sick every time. And even people that have pretty good strength with motion sickness even get sick with that.
Yep.
So
I don't have a lot of motion sickness. I mean, I grew up in Florida. I worked on docks, with boat rental and all that kind of stuff. I rode wave runners, boats, all of that kind of stuff all the time. So very, very little in terms of motion sickness. I tried the Meta Horizons where you do have that sort of, I call it the ghostly movement. And now what they do is they kind of bring it in and
yeah,
like make it tunneled, right?
yeah, they've been
That
yet.
didn't help me.
No, me neither.
That
Yep.
didn't help me. I would do that and I'd be like, okay, that's too much. And so I would just close my eyes a little bit. I can't have a student closing their eyes
Yeah.
dealing with a patient, it's like not gonna
Yeah.
happen. But that hopping, that ratcheting, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's probably why I'm only looking at 10 to 15% of my students and it's 10%, it's probably right around 10% saying that they have some motion sickness. The other ones will be like, it was a little hot in the room, or it was this, or it was that. The other thing to try, and I haven't messed with it yet, but it's gonna come. I'm gonna do it. Is a box fan underneath the table that we have our VR headsets on, and have it blowing so that your body still always has a spatial awareness of which way you're facing.
That's a great idea.
Yeah,
That's a really good idea.
I've done some looking into it, and I think it might be good. It might be helpful. You know, it also gets rid of it was really hot in the room.
Yeah. Yeah. I know I'd be there for it. Turn it up. I would
Yeah,
love
it's worth
that.
trying.
Yeah.
I use a fan for, like, we have a smaller room at Reedsburg, and I only have 3 setups in that smaller room. So I use a rotating fan, and I just put it in the room in the corner, and I have it shooting in one direction, so that everyone is getting that fan, and I've had way less complaints. So
Good
I mean,
idea.
it's total right now, but you know.
Very cool.
Maybe I'll try it out and do a little research on it,
Yeah, I
Do
never considered
a
the
little research
possibility.
paper.
Yeah, like for temperature wise, I can see that. I never considered the possibility of it being a persistent but non-physically touching anchor point.
Yeah.
Like where you always know kind of roughly where that fan is because you feel it all the time. So when you're rotating around, you kind of feel that. That's really interesting.
Because then it gets rid of that loss of spatial awareness that you get sometimes when you get into
Yeah.
VR.
Yeah.
And I do it at home. I'll set up a box fan at home when I'm out in VR, and it has helped me. And it's increased the longevity of the time that I can spend in VR too. So, usually once I got to about 2 hours, I was going to take a break, that kind of stuff. Um, but then like the time was passing quicker for me, and I was like, wow, I'm not having as many of those like weird feelings and stuff like that because I'm still aware of where I'm at in the world. Um, so anyway, it's Bill Ballo's tip of the day.
Yeah, I love it. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Bill, was there any experience or product that stood out to you as kind of the
Yeah,
gee whiz?
obviously I I'm almost an Acadicus purist.
Right.
Like, I love Acadicus, Acadicus like this, like it's my baby, and I hesitate to talk about other people's children, you know. Um, but I will, since you asked, Rick, I will say Curio XR. If you don't get a chance to check it out, what they're doing with some of the platform, it is standalone. So the fidelity I feel is a little less than what we're getting out of a catechist. But I gotta say, the people at Curio XR were really awesome too. I have worked with them, and we've already started some discussion with them previously, I gave my chemistry instructor a chance to try their chemistry unit. It's really, really neat. And we're even talking about, a little bit of development for, some of the other things that are sort of outside of what we're doing in Acadicus. So I definitely like their product. Um, again, standalone, it does work in pass through as well, which I think is really neat. With the threes, like that, like leverage the pass through, man. But it's so nice because then you can be in pass through, you're still working on something that's in your room, but then you can see the other people around you too. And that I thought that was really helpful and really cool. So yeah, I see, Jon brought it up, and plus the other thing is, with me, Jon, Rick, well, we all know. Like for me, it's not just the vendor itself. It's like, how does this vendor operate? Like, how do you like, what's your overall outlook on what you're doing? Are you doing it just to make a buck? Are you
Mhm.
throwing together what I think is junk to make a buck? Or do you really want to change the way education does things? Because I'm with a catechist because I believe in the way that we're changing education.
Mhm.
I'm with, the other places that I've been with, and for language learning, we use a program called Immerse Me. And are there some drawbacks on some of these things? Maybe there are little things where it's like, oh gee, I really wish it was this, or I really wish that. But I'm more likely to go to you because of the way that I think I'm going to get treated as a person. Not just as a customer, but as a person. So, and that's a testament to the places that I've talked to, and even other places I've talked to as well that I haven't, mentioned here, that are great. One of the reasons we're using Arbor XR is, and there I go again. Sorry, but one of the reasons that we're using Arbor XR is because their customer service was so much better than the other places that I talked to, who couldn't even remember my name. It's Bill. It's not that hard. It's Bill, okay? It's 3 letters. It's not that hard. But they couldn't even remember my name. So like, uh, I'm more likely to go to somebody who I know I'm going to get good customer service out of. And I mean, we spend money at the college. So just saying,
Absolutely. Yep.
you know.
Yeah, this is great.
So yeah, so Rick, to answer that question, that was I think that was great. Not that others weren't. Not that others weren't. Were other ones that I checked out. I checked out, XR Guru, which I thought was pretty neat and stuff like that. But Curio XR stood out for me as far as using standalone, and you know some of the stuff that you could do in there in terms of standalone. I still believe that having your PC is important. So being able to link to that. But then it's nice too, like, I can go to the chemistry lab, and I can put them in headsets in the chemistry lab, and we can do some work in chemistry.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's really good stuff. Thanks for the insights from the conference. What was your name again?
Uh,
Bob,
Bob? Yeah.
Bob.
that's what they called me. That was the name. They kept calling me Bob in every email. By the way, if you look at the bottom of my email, my name is there. And it's not Robert, it is William,
Yeah.
which,
Yeah.
if you called me Will, and there are people that call me Will, I'm okay with that. Will, I'm good. If you
You at
went
least get it.
Liam, I guess Liam would be a little weird. I've never gone by Liam, but yeah, Mitch, that's it. That's what I was called, Bob. They kept saying Bob.
Not rooting for the Buffalo Bobs.
Yeah, right. Come
Oh,
on, man.
jeez.
You know, if you called me Gator, I'd understand. Okay, all right, that's cool. Man.
Oh, man.
I used to work with a
So, you know,
gator.
it just does make a difference to anybody out there that is a vendor thinking becoming a vendor, whatever. Yeah, I understand you got to make money. That's important. There's no doubt about it. Make money, absolutely. But goodness, when you're working with people that are doing education, don't forget why you're here. Don't forget why you're here, man.
Absolutely. That's
No,
the whole point for me is the community. I couldn't do this without the community. It just because it's hard to build this stuff and you do get down in the weeds and it's challenging and there's times when it's just really really difficult, but then you meet with one of those customers, that I consider friends first, right? Like Dr. McAdams this morning, I had a phenomenal call with him and I just left that call all fired up again, like let's go, like let's keep building. And you just get re-inspired all over again. And it's that community, that personal connection, that networking connection. When I met, excuse me, when I met Carly, when I met you, just knowing, all you guys, this is what it's about for me. If it
yeah,
wasn't for this, I don't know if I'd have the energy to just build some abstract application that you're just transactionally selling to people without any contact with them. It's just,
yeah.
I think at this phase of VR, it's about innovation. And if it's innovation, it has to be this iterative ripping and tearing and testing and trying and publishing and studying and sharing. And, it's community. It has to be community. IMSH is where I fell in love with simulation for that reason. I was like, these people are amazing. They're innovators. They're all working together. I love this. I want to be a part of it. And that was it, 6 years ago. I haven't looked back.
Plus, it's fun.
And it's
That's
fun.
what makes it fun too.
Sure, sure. You get to know people
Oh,
at those conferences, and then you go year after year. It's like that's what you're going for, really, at this point. You want to see all those other people and you get to know them. And yeah,
yep.
that's the best part.
One of the guys with Curio XR went to Florida State, and so my joke is, well, I'll just speak slower for you, like that's what it becomes, right? It becomes this kind of back and forth where you're okay with like having a little fun, and then you get to know that person, and then because what I do too, like even at the college, when I have a problem, when I have something that I need solved, I find the person that I know is going to solve that problem. Yeah, I can. I obviously I put in help desk tickets just like everybody else does too at times. But like, yesterday I was having a problem with my network, and I'm like, okay, I don't know all the answers to the question to hook this up to the network. It was on Arbor XR, like to get this network hooked up. So I know who my network person is. And I go to that person and I'm like, hey, would you be able to meet with me for like 15 minutes? That's it. And it's rough because I just don't know the answers and all that. And he comes in 5 minutes later, it's done. We're shaking hands. I'm thanking him. I'm calling him by name. How's your family? Those kind of things. Like, how was your Christmas? I like that way better than just not knowing who I'm dealing with or whatever. And it makes me way more effective at my job too. I like meeting with the linear algebra instructor in the hallway, and we've got this back and forth, about football, or we're talking about, hey, how do you think the Bills are going to those kinds of. I like that. I never thought I would, but I do. So.
Well, I think, Bill, you raise a good point, and John, just to talk a little bit about what you have created and built. What's unique, I think, about Acadicus is you have this platform that's this kind of this sandbox, right? Mitch and I were on a call today. We were supposed to meet with somebody who didn't show. And we ended up spending a half an hour just kind of talking about how we can do things in Acadicus, right? It's like, yeah, you could use this widget and do that. Or maybe, if you turned it on its head, it would do this, or, and it made me think about 3 or 4 different ways of doing something that I hadn't thought of before.
Yep.
And so it's kind of this thinking exercise in and of itself, just in putting things together. And that's what's so, I think, unique and fun about it. It's not Bill, you used the term prescriptive, where
Yeah.
you put on the headset and you can do that, right? You can go through the Foley exercise and it's check, 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 check. Okay. But there's so much more you can do than that in the Acadicus environment, right? I mean,
Yep.
just in terms of your problem solving, which is such a integral part of being in the healthcare.
Yeah.
That's what you do for a living. Problem
Yeah.
solving.
Well, and skill and checklist based learning is perfectly fine. We
Yes,
need,
absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah, we need that. But then when instructors want critical thinking,
Mhm.
right? And you go, well, no, it doesn't do that. It just does this, 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 and this. That they kind of get tired. Like, well,
And you
could you
can't
find me
engage
something that
students.
helps with critical thinking?
Yeah, you can't engage students too much over the checking the boxes.
Yeah, yeah,
Every now and then, because there are certain things you have to do a certain way,
yeah,
right? In healthcare, has to happen, right? Sterile, you go through a sterile process, it's, check, 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 check. But, there's always these curves that you are thrown in healthcare
Yep.
that you have to be able to think around.
Well,
Yeah,
not
and-
only that, but it's also the being able to, because we don't work independently within healthcare. We have to work with other people and deal with personalities and their stress and their anxiety. And
right.
when you're in a prescriptive environment alone and with only very limited things to do, you're not getting that opportunity. And what I hear most from hospitals in our area is the students struggle the most with the soft skills like communication, feedback, and you don't get that when you're in those in other environments. Whereas in Acadicus, because you can work as a team to problem solve and work through things and critically think and bounce ideas off each other, and that's huge.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we hear that all the
Totally.
time.
Yep. Yep. That makes all the difference. And being able to sort of be together in that
Mhm.
simulation. Yeah, totally. Absolutely makes all the difference.
Well, is there anything else we want to talk about? Do we want to wrap this one up a little early?
So I gotta run because I have to go teach tonight. So
Okay. Yeah, that's a good sign. It's great to see you all.
Yeah.
Happy Friday. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next Friday.
And go Bills.
Cheers. Yeah,
Go Bills.
Or go Bobs.
Go
Go
Bobs.
Bobs.
The Buffalo Bobs.
Go Bobs. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.